All right.
And we are live.
Yeah, baby.
Zero, number 56.
Come on.
Oh, yeah. Always got it. But
has the stream started? I don't know. It has,
yeah, it has. I'm just trying to get all my windows because I have like 6 and the right ones were not put up. So now it's 90% normal, and we'll just fuck it. We'll do it live. You know,
as you do.
But good morning, people. We're on Religion 056. We have me, Conk. We have Brooke, and we have Amos is back. Hey, look at that. Amos wanted to come chill. Oh, I talked over the applause. I was too ready to go.
Good man.
But yeah, Amos decided to grace us with his very lovely face. I was going to say half Asian face. Yeah. But, you know, that was a given. And me explaining it is just making it take longer. Look at that. It's show business. Amos, what's going on in your neck of the woods last month or change?
Literally nothing. Nothing's happened at all.
Nothing at all. Just months gone, and just you haven't been there. And
Yep. No, a few things have changed. I mean, first off, this is a different setup that we've got going on. We've got a computer over here. Got a new PC actually, so I'm not on my Mac anymore.
Ooh.
Yeah,
you betrayed the clan.
Yeah.
Now you can do real things with your computer.
Exactly. Yeah, and just been staying busy, working on different things. So things are developing. A lot of stuff I'll have to talk about off the air.
Good.
Spicy. All right. Brooke, what's going on in your neck of the woods?
I mean, Amos didn't plug his D&D game. I don't know if you wanted to if people wanted to.
I mean, that's on Masculine Geek. Everyone's kind of watching that. Yeah. So, basically, Drew Bay is Dungeon Master for
Fitness Chad. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, for a first edition Dungeons and Dragons game, which is basically it's the game that came out when it came. It is the game that came out. Completely different from games that are played now. And then of course there's Vince, TJ, Rolla Tomasi, and myself. We're all playing in the game. So
sweet.
See how that goes.
And what night of the week does that usually?
That's on Wednesday night. So
is there a playlist that maybe you could drop it in the chat if people want to come check it out?
Yeah. Let me just pull it up here. Yeah. So, I mean, you go look up Masculine Geek, and it's most of their shows right now. Are just it's either a guest every now and then D&D. So,
it's amazing how many YouTubers resort to like just gaming, because coming up with content every day, you need like 3 videos a week, 10 minutes long. That's a lot of content, man. And if you really want to blow up, you got to do something every day. It's just easier to like play games for 20 hours, like 2 hours, chop it up 20 minutes each, and that's how you get your quarters. So not surprised Masculine Geek went that way.
Yeah. The craziest one I've seen is the quartering. You know him? He does gaming and politics. He has like 3 channels, and each of them get 4 or 5 videos a day. And I'm like, how does that man breathe and eat and poop, man? He just has no time. How is he doing that?
I mean, that's the Tim Pool model. That's what made Tim Pool, 3 channels over 1 million subscribers each, just doing commentary on the news. And you do a video, Styx Hexenhammer, all of these guys.
Yeah.
That's how they did it. That's a lot
crazy.
of work, though. Yeah. No. Amos, did you get the playlist there?
Yeah, I posted it.
Posted it in the chat.
Okay. But why can't I not see it? Did they change up something?
I don't know.
Oh, is it because I posted a link?
Oh, it might have downed it, but it doesn't even show it on my end.
Yeah, nothing showed up.
This is going.
It might take a while. Yeah.
You know what it is?
What?
You gotta give me the wrench.
Yeah, but you gotta type so I can click your name and give you a wrench.
You got to say something in the chat. So
yeah, you got to contribute to the community, Amos.
Exactly. Yeah, I guess while you're doing that, I'll fill you guys in. Yeah, Conk, it's been like what, almost a month?
Yeah.
Damn it, bro. Like it's been a long time, man.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I gotta go and like trim my beard. It's getting a little unruly at this point. Some interesting highlights. I've recently got a new job, yeah, which I will be starting in September. Work from home, tech support, and like policy support for an insurance company. It's not great money, but if I don't have the expense of travel and I don't have to like alter all my suits and do all that jazz, yeah, it'll pay more than my basic expenses, and I should be okay. And I can move up in the ranks pretty quick if I do a good job, which I suspect to do. This is gonna be the first job outside of my own business that I'll be doing out here in the UK. So pretty excited about that. Oh yeah, Amos, there you go. We got the playlist has come through. Good on you, man. Yeah, so I was looking forward to the topic. We had a brief discussion off air that you wanted to do a little more research on it. So we changed it at the last minute to something that I'm had a lot of experience with, and I have some interesting things to say about evangelism and all this good stuff. So looking forward to today's show. And of course, always good to be back with Amos. We haven't done our show in quite a while, so it's good to see his face and his new setup and everything. So yeah, looking forward to today. How are you doing, my friend? How are you doing over in Kansas City?
Yeah,
with all these crazy Airbnb people that you're dealing with.
Oh, good. Those have been I funny story about that. So the good news is I decided to go hardcore on all of it. Like I have 3-day minimum stays. I raised all the prices. I said no locals. You're immediately rejected if you're within 100 miles of me. And it's been good so far. The downside is I got a paper in the mail that said Airbnbs are illegal in my town and they're asking me to cease and desist. But they did not. My mother, if you guys don't know, is a lawyer. So I had her look at it and they go, well, they actually didn't cite the specific policy that you violated. So I wouldn't do anything. And I'm like, awesome. So we're going to keep it running until they start knocking down my door because I like having a free house. I'm making about $1,500 to $2,000 a month in rent, and my mortgage is $1,200. So it's a free house as of now. So it's pretty cool.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah. We're starting to come into, because, now school's starting back up and a lot of people are stopping vacation. So we're getting into the low volume where I'll probably be making about $1,000 a month is what it's looking like now, just based on the people here. But I mean, whole 2,000 square foot house for $200 a month, still a pretty good deal.
I mean, is there anybody else in your area doing Airbnb so you can kind of see what other people are doing? Yeah.
Yeah. If you search my zip code, there's like 9 or 10.
Right.
And okay, I actually DM'd all of them through the app and asked, hey, have you ever gotten a cease and desist letter? And none of them have. So I think one of my neighbors snitched or a sad guest. That's my guess. But we did have one guest that only stayed for 3 hours and left and said, this is horrible, blah, blah, blah. You didn't clean the place. It's all your title's misleading, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, send me pictures. And they're like, well, we took pictures, but we're not going to send them to you. And I'm like, well, sucks to suck. And, which makes me feel like they didn't take pictures. They were just trying to threaten me with shit. And I'm like, well, if I see pictures and I think you're right, I'll give you a refund. And they're like, no, we're not sending it to you. We're sending them to Airbnb officially, and we're going to file a report. And they never did. So they're just trying to get a free house or a place to stay or some food or something. I don't know. But yeah, so there's a chance they snitched or unhappy neighbors, I guess. I don't know. I only know one of my neighbors, and he's chill. He's like a traditional redneck, like hillbilly with like broken cars in his lawn and like wears overalls and has a mullet, but he's awesome.
Cool. Tell him we said hi.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he's pretty chill. Sometimes he'll come over and drink with the guests. If they're like out on the front porch drinking beer, he'll come over and bring beer and drink with them. And I'm like, okay, I mean, awesome.
Part of the experience, man. Yeah.
Yeah, you get to meet Mike the hillbilly. But
fantastic.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, that's the rental's going good. My other big thing is I purchased a $4,000 home gym called Tonal. You've probably seen random ads and Facebook posts for it and blah, 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 because I've been going to the gym off and on, and the gyms around here, especially the one I bought or I paid for the gym membership, they're pretty small. and they're packed all of the time. I can't find a time of the day where I can just go in and do it and leave. There's always people there. You always got to wait on machines, and it's been a pain in the ass. And now my job is also starting to do the draconian lockdown stuff. They keep changing all the mask rules of when you can and can't be there. And the gym is right next to my work, which is still relatively far away from my house. So I was looking for alternatives, found that. And it's a weight machine that they mount directly into the studs on your wall. So it's like permanently there. And apparently it's a bitch if you move. So I'm not planning on selling my house anytime soon. But yeah, it's essentially a cable weight machine mix. And it goes up to 200 digital pounds, and it's digital pounds because there's no weights actually in the machine.
Yeah.
It just has magnets that pull against you extremely hard, up to 200 pounds.
Cool.
And it comes with a barbell you attach to it, so you can deadlift, squat, bench, all the good stuff, lat pull downs, all the good things. And, looks pretty sick. So I decided to screw it. I got some bonus money from my work last month, and I was wondering what I wanted to throw it at. I was going to throw it at my motorcycle, but I decided to put that off because this looked cooler. And and I got that. It'll be here mid to late September, they said. So it's got a long delivery wait. But yeah, cool. I'm pretty hopped about that. So I'm going to get my gains back from college.
Good on you, man. Good on you. Robert Frank be praised.
Yeah, every day is chest day,
Exactly.
All right.
Good on you, man.
All right. So today's topic, Religion 056, Soapboxes and Brimstone. I thought that was a little fun thing. We're pushing off the sex episode because it's going to be big, and I want it to be polished, because if I forget something or it doesn't go organized, then there's going to be 5,000 times more haters than there's already going to be. So I'm trying to get it concise and make it like a reference point for future episodes. So that's still, the infrastructure of that is still coming in the background. So, and I was definitely not prepared. I've been busy as hell IRL. So, so today we're talking about Soapboxes and Brimstone. The reason I brought up this topic, I don't know if I told you guys yet in the chat, but I'm pretty active on Discord in general. And I help moderate a couple of them that I've been on for a long time. And one of them started introducing people that, how do you put it? They're like the apologist Bible answer man style people, where they have their own little special voice room where people come in and ask them Bible answer questions, and they use that as their form of evangelism. But all of them are super narcissistic a-holes to everyone. So they're always right, and their interpretation's always right, but they're doing it as their missionary statement to teach people about Jesus so they don't go to hell. On Discord. So yeah, they said this is their soapbox, right? Where they're trying to teach everyone about Jesus so they don't go to hell. And it's kind of weird that they all have the same attitude of I'm always right, and you have to listen to me and my interpretation. There's no questioning here because I care about you. Now shut up or I'm going to mute you. That happens a lot. So I just thought that whole idea was interesting, and how many people are okay with that in my mind. So I kind of want to talk about the idea of evangelism in general. Is kind of like the big term of how are Christians to go out and preach the gospel, if at all. What should we be saying? What should we not be saying? Should we even hang out with other non-Christians, or should it only be preaching? Right? Is every second of every day hanging out with a sinner have to be talking about their salvation, or can you go get a beer with a bud that's an atheist? Right? So I kind of wanted to dive into all of those topics just to give people an alternative to Discord preachers.
YouTube preachers.
Oh yeah. Take that. We got video punk. Technology's on our side. So I kind of want to just start with what's your guys' definition or interpretation of when you hear the word evangelism? Anyone can go first. I know it all stems from the Great Commission, right?
Yes.
Fancy Bible term for go out into the nations, Judea, Samaria, and the ends of the earth. How do you guys interpret that in evangelism versus how it's being used? Is that a good way to clarify it? I don't know.
Amos, you've been absent for so long, man. You take the floor, bro. Come on.
Yeah, actually, just real quick, because you guys are still doing like an hour and a half or an hour.
Yeah, hour
in,
and 15,
in
20
between.
minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to call it at about an hour. Um, I think evangelism is pretty much any action that basically convinces people or persuades people to, I guess, to become a Christian, to basically, convince them of the word of God, the gospel, stuff like that. Literally anything. So it might just be by action. So if you're just like being a good person, being, you know, giving glory to God, that whole thing, like you're technically you're evangelizing. So, what was it? Preach the word, and if necessary, use words. That's kind of how I see it. So anyone just living their life and people know why they are or who they're giving the glory to, that could be a type of evangelism. Doesn't necessarily have to be words or teaching or like all that is all important, but anything that leads someone to the gospel, I think, is evangelism.
Sweet. It's a good answer. Brooke, what say you?
Yeah, I would agree with Amos in that respect. There's something that you said about the Great Commission. Excuse me. It's very interesting to look at the ministry of Jesus because he never evangelized to the Gentiles, to the Romans. Like he never told the Roman armies or the centurion or anything like that about the afterlife, salvation, anything. The only people who got that preaching was the Jews. Interesting. There's another point on that. The Great Commission has been taken completely out of context. Colossians 1:3 actually says that Paul says the gospel has already been preached to every creature under the sun, which means the Great Commission was fulfilled at least in the lifetime of Paul, at least if we believe the Bible. So that's an interesting take as well. But yes, evangelism in that sense is, bringing anybody to the point of contact with their union and their relationship with Jesus Christ and explaining what he has done on their behalf, whether they like it or not. This is the free gift that he has given to them. And I think we get it very confused. The gospel means good news. What is news? News is something that, has already happened, and I am telling it to you. Whether you believe it or not does not affect the news, right? All you can do is respond to the news. And it literally means too good to be true. Oh, did I just freeze there for a second?
No, we're good.
No, you're good. Yeah.
Oh, my screen just went black for some reason. Yeah. So it literally means too good to be true news. And I think that's very interesting when we get into like the apologetic side and especially the Brimstone preachers, how they have made that into something completely different. But yeah, it could be done. There have been fantastic evangelists throughout the centuries, many of whom were mute, many of them who just, they didn't speak a word. They took vows of silence. And, sometimes the glory was just upon them. People would come and watch them and have these encounters and amazing experiences and so forth. So yeah, it's not limited to a technique. I think where we've kind of gone off the rails now, it's become systematic theology. And we now have like a formula, like a step process that people try to use. So you hear a lot of street preachers talk about like the good person test and, try to get people to admit they're a sinner and all this other kind of nonsense. I think that's when you've reduced the gospel from something that is actually good news and you've just made it a get out of hell free card, which is very ineffective at the end of the day because you could replace that get out of free thing with anything. Right? If you believe in Buddha, you don't go to hell. If you're Jehovah's Witness, they don't believe in hell. And you cheapen the gospel in a lot of those respects. I don't appreciate these kind of Discord, online evangelists. I encounter them a lot in a lot of the kind of Telegram groups and stuff like that. And of course, everything that's going on now is the mark of the beast. And, if you accept the shot, you're going to hell and all this kind of
hell.
Completely taking everything out of context, right? And I don't think you're winning anybody to your side with that position. There is a proper way to do it. John Wesley of the Methodist Church does it. The Jehovah's Witnesses, ironically, they do it correctly. I think the Mormons, to a certain extent, do it correctly. Not that I agree with their theology, but the one thing they actually do correctly is evangelism. And we'll get to that
Oh yeah,
how it should be done and so forth. But what do you think, Cog? These online preachers and fire and was it Soapbox and Brimstone people on Discord? What do you think, man?
Oh yeah. So I think it's interesting, and this is something I looked up a lot in college when I was I worked at a Pentecostal Hispanic church, and this was a big part of it of where I started looking into this. But if you think this is kind of what I came to the conclusion to is first and foremost, it's kind of hard to put this out. There are more than one way to evangelize, right?
Yes.
I think we could agree on that. It's a pretty vague concept. You don't like the Great Commission is go out and spread the good news, right, to the ends of the earth. It doesn't tell you how to do that. It's not a prescription. You have to do it this way, this way, and this way. So I looked at examples, and I think the greatest, juxtaposition, one of my favorite words, is how did Jesus relate to people to how John the Baptist related to people, right?
Right.
Because John the Baptist, you could argue, is a little more on that fire and brimstone style, repent everyone, come to the desert, get baptized, or else, he liked to dissuade himself from domestication, where he lived wildly and wore rough clothes and ate bugs in the woods and yelled at everyone to repent, right? Yes. And then Jesus took a very near opposite approach of being in the community, being in the cities, talking to the people. And like you said, Brooke, it's a good point. He wasn't out there preaching, hellfire and brimstone. He was mostly hanging out with people and then throwing in nuggets as they came by, right?
Correct.
Spiritual nuggets, so to speak, McNuggies. Maybe a little dip in there too. But yeah, he was just playing it by ear and doing his thing. And then when something would come up, he could talk about it. But he wasn't actively, whipping people besides the temple money changers. He wasn't out there like forcing people to repent and screaming at them like the end is nigh, right? So, I mean, there's obviously two examples there. And I can't remember the verse, but it's kind of like John the Baptist was the most righteous man to ever live, right?
Yeah. The greatest prophet that ever was John the Baptist.
Yeah. And so that gives some credit to his style, right, of evangelism. So I don't want to dissuade it fully. However, this is kind of the big issue is, do we still need that, right? From his time and day. We talked about it an episode or two ago that technically Jesus is an Old Testament prophet, right?
Yes.
The new covenant, the New Testament doesn't officially start until after his death and resurrection, in Pentecost, and then you get the Acts, and then you get everything else in the church age, if you're looking at the different ages of Christianity. So technically, he was still doing that from an Old Testament method too. So I think that also holds weight. So in general, I don't have a hard point. You have to do it this way, but I can tell a lot of modern evangelical people do not take biblical context in at all. They've kind of become their own little culture, self-made culture of dogmas and ways to do it. Yeah, but what you're talking about, the modern soapboxes, and you didn't name drop them, but I'll name drop them. Living Waters with Ray Comfort and Kirk Cameron. They're probably the biggest people online or in the media that does this kind of thing, right? They do the good person test. They try to encourage people to realize, oh, you're always sinning all the time and you need, penal substitution and all of this stuff. And they say this is the way to do it, right?
What is the whole thing Ray Comfort does with the banana?
Oh, yeah. Well, that's his whole weird atheist thing. That's his little side project where he tries to, and that's going to come in later because I want to talk about a lot of people do debate as evangelism. And I want to hit on that eventually. But yeah, I don't think there's a hard pressed way to do it. You can look at Jesus' life, you can look at John the Baptist's life. All of them had very different things. Even in the early church in Acts, some people just hung out with the orphans and widows, right? And that was their whole thing. They didn't go out talking and missionarying like, Paul did. And they weren't saying, oh, you're bad people because you're not on a boat sailing across the sea to go evangelize. They did their job, right? That in itself was their form of Christian duty and evangelism, was look after the widows. That was your job.
Correct.
Yeah.
Widows and orphans. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so I think I can't put a prescription on it that this is the right way, but I can definitely tell you what's the wrong way. And that'd be good fun. But with the Hellfire and Brimstone people, I think a point to point out is, what are they actually trying to save from? Because we've talked about hell and heaven and salvation here. That's definitely counter to the common narrative of our modern times, right? So I was wondering, Brooke, what are they actually trying to save them from? Like, where are they getting Hellfire and Brimstone from? And do you agree with that?
I mean, I'll put it this way. God can use anything, even a bad preacher, even a preacher who gets it completely wrong. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, even for my own self, the Jehovah Witnesses got me to read the Bible, right? Mm-hmm. And I mean, once I started reading the Bible, I realized they were very wrong, but mm-hmm. you know, they were the ones who came to my house, and every week they'd pull out their little whatever pamphlet, and you know, they'll walk through their select verses. But I was stupid enough to go and read the whole thing in context and realize that what they're saying, what they're saying is not what the verse actually says. So God could use anything. I mean, of course, like Jonathan Edwards, you know, Sinners in the Hands of an Angry God brought about the Second Awakening in the 17 and 1800s. You know, and it was, you know, God hates you. God is angry at you because you're a sinner. Charles Finney was, I mean, if you could listen to Charles Finney's sermons today, and he take great joy in calling his parishioners sinners. And he does it like sinners, like, oh, just like this guttural kind of thing. He's where we get the altar call, is Charles Finney. He's the guy that invented that whole thing to kind of push back on Calvinism. And there's no doubt that these people had great outreach and success. You know, Finney would come into a town, and I think New York or one of those places was completely shut down at the preaching of you know, some of these people. So God can use anything. It doesn't mean that these people have it right. It doesn't mean that, you know, their theology is right or whatever. But, you know, God is looking for an imperfect vessel, and he will use what he has. I think we all probably started off in a theology that we don't agree with today. Mm-hmm. So it's a journey. It's a journey in that respect. So to answer your question specifically, yes, there are basically two perceptions of God. There is the one perception where God loves you unconditionally, and he's willing to pursue you and save you and redeem you at all cost. And there's nothing that can separate you from his love. But then there's another school which says God doesn't really love you, right? He kind of tolerates you. You're kind of, you know, you're a shit sandwich, but you know, you cover you in Jesus, and he could kind of tolerate your stink. He doesn't really love you, and he's not really pursuing you. He just gives you this tiny, teeny, weeny little opportunity within your 70 years of existence to get to know him before he's willing to fry you forever. Right? Those are kind of right. Yeah, those are the two schools of thought. I know we've done the episode on hell, and we talked about the 3 or 4 versions of that and so forth. So I for one do not fall on the eternal conscious torment of hell. But what I have a problem with those preachers is that they're giving the wrong impression of the Father. They're giving the wrong impression of God. They are espousing this view that God really doesn't like you. Like in some cases, as Jonathan Edwards, God hates you, and he can't wait to like wipe you out. And what was it? Ray Comfort and these guys, they have a very similar view. Mm-hmm. And let's be honest, and anybody who's done any kind of counseling and stuff like that, that is a very terrifying view of God, a God that you can't escape from, a God that you can't run from. That could cause all sorts of psychological problems and damage and stuff like that if you really believed on these things. And many people do. And we're seeing that the flourishing of mental illness in the church as a result of it. So no, I don't agree with that. I think, you know, God really loved us to the point where he died for us. He imparted all of these things upon us, whether we liked it or not. When we were at our worst, he gave us his best. So the crucifixion of Jesus Christ, where we basically rejected God, said we don't want you, and we stuck him on a cross, God gave us his best by adopting us, redeeming us, healing us, and doing all of these different types of things. That is the true image of God, not this other one. And I hope more and more people kind of wake up to that and get out from that, you know, kind of twisted thinking.
Mm-hmm. All right. Amos, I'm going to give you a slightly different question.
Oh, boy.
It's in the same veins, though. So your juices are already flowing, I promise. It's going to be huge. It's going to be a great question.
Huge, yeah. It's the greatest.
But I remember very specifically, Tom Bombadil asked a question to my friend Steven when we had that show. And Amos, I think you were out of town or something for that one. That's when you were partying with Spike.
Yes.
But he asked, how should we care about the urgency of salvation? And if salvation is an urgent measure, shouldn't fire and brimstone soapboxing be the correct solution? How urgent is it that we should tell people about Jesus? Is essentially.
Ooh, good question.
That's a good question.
Yeah. I mean, the urgency really honestly depends upon what version of, the gospel and what version of hell you're trying to portray to people. You're trying to talk to people about. If you are the fire and brimstone type, I think I remember actually Penn Jillette talked about this. With like, as he's full on atheist and everything and doesn't agree, but he's talked about how he can appreciate and understand like why these are passionate people that believe in what they believe in, but he kind of turns it on them and goes, well, if this if hell is so real and it's so powerful and it's so urgent that I accept Jesus, then you really want to believe that, you should never sleep. You should never eat. You should never do anything else except preach the gospel constantly, not wasting a single breath, because any wasted breath is a wasted opportunity. Anytime sleeping, eating, using the bathroom, or anything is wasted effort. So then he kind of turned it and said, do you really believe that? Do you really believe in this gospel you claim to be preaching to me? If you're going to go home to sleep tonight, if you're going to take any breaks, which kind of changes that whole idea of the urgency. If it were true, really, really true, like if you really believed in hellfire and brimstone.
Yeah. The millisecond you die, boom, you're burning forever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you believe your gospel that you're preaching must reach everyone because of this urgency. You better not I could even be like, okay, you got to eat, you got to sleep, you got to use the bathroom, but you better not do anything else. You better not have a job. You better not have a family, no kids, no friends. You just preach the gospel all the time, or else you're not serious. You don't really believe that. But then the other side of that would just be, well, what do you actually believe? Do you believe God? Like, how much do you believe God is taking care of this? Is he moving on people's hearts? Is he moving through the world, through people? Are people who even, I think, was it Franklin Graham talked about, what about the man in the middle of Africa that has never heard the name Jesus? What happens to him? He talked about how God can basically move on that man's heart to seek something out. He may not call it Jesus, but he'll seek out God. And that man could have a chance. I don't exactly agree. I think it's an unfinished sort of idea, but it's basically that God takes care of the whole world. Why are we so worried and so concerned that, well, we need to push and to get people to hear the gospel? We're not going to reach everyone under our own strength. We're going to have to allow for God to move on people, the Holy Spirit to move on people, through people, or just on their own. People have dreams. People have desires and pursuits that lead them into certain things. Who's to say you absolutely have to hear the gospel before you die? What if you heard the gospel after you died? And then you got saved that way. I've heard people talk about that. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy either way. And something you pointed out there, and something that was kind of in between the lines you're saying, is I think a lot of it has to do with trust, right? If you are so urgent that you have to save everyone, that you're very trusting yourself and not God's plan, right? You're putting the weight on your shoulders because you're not trusting that the right moments will come when they come, right? And it kind of almost goes back to a works-based religion at that point, doesn't it? Normally when we think of works, we think of, helping someone move, or, doing good deeds and not touching your pee-pee and a lot of those work things. But I mean, if you've put a work burden on yourself that you have to save everyone that you see, and you have to pray for every car that passes you in the street, or else they might go to hell. Like, that's a works-based religion right there, isn't it?
Yeah, it's funny actually. There's a little story. So my friend Spike Cohen has this whole thing he talks about when he goes on a plane. So he always likes to try to, like, anytime he's in the windows, one of those the special like emergency exit seats.
Oh yeah.
They always want to make sure, like, you're able-bodied and all this stuff. And when they do the whole like safety whatever thing they do before the flight, they'll look to him and they'll be like, will you like make sure you can operate that door? And he has this whole thing, he tweeted it out. It was this whole joke, like, every time they do that, he will sit there and sternly look at the flight attendant in the eye. I will save this entire plane.
Good man.
I will make sure everybody is out of this plane before I leave. If it kills, like, he'll just get super serious just to mess with them.
Slowly starts putting on a cape.
Exactly, but it's like, that is kind of like this idea of evangelism is like, I'm going to save everyone I come in contact with. It's like, no, you're not.
Not even close. Yeah.
Not exactly. Not even close. And if you think you're going to be the one to save them, you don't understand the gospel.
Mm-hmm.
You're the one that just gets to give them the good news. The saving has already happened. At least that's how I see it. Now, there is still acceptance and, believing in Jesus and all that. That's all important. But the saving happened over, 2,000 years ago. What are you trying to do now? It's just preaching the gospel. It's sharing the good news. You're not saving, like, Christian saving people is like, you could save someone's life physically, but you're not saving them spiritually. Jesus did that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. So I kind of want to move now into like, if we're not all in on the fire and brimstone and it's not as urgent as we say, what do we do then? What does evangelism look like if we're not screaming at people to repent? How would you guys do it? How do you see evangelism in your life, Brooke?
Actually, I did a video on this on my religious channel. So anybody check the show notes and you can go and see that. First of all, I'd say if you look at the different branches of the church, you see they've approached evangelism very differently. So the Eastern Orthodox and I think pretty much the Calvinists, the Catholics, the Catholics stopped evangelism, like outreach, pretty much with the end of colonialism, right? Once they'd expanded their territories and so forth, Church of England was the same thing. You don't really see a lot of these kind of older established churches going out and doing evangelism. And I think to a certain extent, that's probably to their downfall. The reason that the evangelical and the Protestant movement has basically, it's exploded. And it might actually be on track in a couple of years to like overtake Catholicism, which is like 2 billion people. But a lot of that is people are born into Catholicism. You don't get a lot of converts into Catholicism. You get massive converts into evangelicalism and Protestantism and so on, is because of evangelism. And what it looks like is exactly what you see in the Bible, is that you go out to people, right? So the Mormons do it, the Jehovah's Witnesses do it, and the early Methodist Church did it. So John Wesley did this, and this was his method. You don't try to bring them into the church, which is basically what every missionary thing is. Come to my meeting, you have a big rally and whatever they do, right? It's all about trying to get people to come to you, but that's not the message. The message is to go out, right? Go to the people, go to the ends of the earth. So the message was to go out and meet people where they're at. Now, John Wesley had the formula where and the Jehovah's Witnesses do it too. Only when you reach a certain level of understanding then you are invited back to the church meeting. Because this is where the mature would meet. They, these are the elders and so forth, and they're talking high theological things. They don't want somebody coming in there and screaming, after reading the Bible once, like, "Oh, you're wrong, and like no respect, no foundation of anything." So they would actually go to these people's homes and work with them, disciple them for sometimes 3 to 6 months before they come to like a formal meeting. Ironically, the Jehovah's Witnesses, I think the Mormons do something similar. I'm not as familiar with them. Now, apart from the fact that all of the theology is wrong, the method of evangelism is correct. It is a matter of going out. And the difference is what is actually preached at the other end of that, which is, your soapbox preacher and stuff like that. The message is the difference. A lot of these people, as you say, are the Brimstone preachers, and they're basically preaching a get out of hell free card. Believe in Jesus, you won't go to hell. Right? Now, again, as I said, gospel means almost too good to be true news. And while that sounds good, that's not really exceptional news, especially for a Jehovah's Witness who doesn't believe in hell, for instance, or a Buddhist who doesn't believe in hell. It's kind of like, well, as the Buddhists that we met in Thailand, for instance, thought that was abhorrent. Like, God is frying people. Like, well, I don't want anything to do with that God. If he's, I'm more compassionate than God and caring for the unbelievers, that I wouldn't do that, but God would. Again, sending kind of the wrong message. The flip side is to actually preach good news that, hey, don't you know the news that you are forgiven, that you're accepted, that you have a father that loves you, that you're not too far from his grace, that you've been made righteous and declared part of the family of God, that you've been exalted into his presence and you're seated with him in high places. Don't you know the news? This is what Christ has done for you. Now, all of that, what I've just said, is objectively true. This is the work of the cross. He has done this for every person on the face of the earth. As Amos quite rightly pointed out, the best you can hope to do is either you accept the news with joy and be like, wow, that's great news. Or I'd be like, I'm not so interested. And even with the latter, we don't exactly know what the outcome of that would be. That's a whole other theological question as to whether you can reject something that's already true about you, which is God's acceptance of you into himself. So those are the two ways of preaching it. And one is far more, I believe, is a better representation of the Father. Doesn't come packed with this kind of dark cloud lining, the conditional stick that's attached to it, which is, if you don't obey, you're going to hell and all this kind of stuff. It's a clear response to something that's pure and it's straightforward. And I think, and I wish the Orthodox would get this, if they actually went out and taught that with the model of evangelism from the evangelicals and others, they would explode. They would just, it would just take off, because that's really good news. The Catholics, for instance, they don't really have a gospel message. A lot of them aren't even entirely sure if they're saved, right? Like they're not even, they're not entirely sure that how do you get to heaven? There's like question marks and stuff. But I'd say the Orthodox is the oldest and they have the best version of the message. And I think if they adopted this style of evangelism, they'd do really, really well.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. Yeah. I mean, talking about the whole idea of, because I think we talked about this, in our episode 1 Batman origin stories, where like me myself, I grew up in a Christian household, and then I was atheist for a while, and then I became a Christian after debating Mormons, right?
Yes.
Because I was like, well, I didn't really believe in Christianity, but I super didn't believe in Mormonism. And they would come to my door, and they came over the course of 8 or 9 weeks, every Tuesday or Wednesday without fail. They'd come and hang out with our puppy, our St. Bernard puppy, and I'd get them some water because they weren't allowed to have soda or coffee. And we would chat, and they'd keep bringing over more and more elders, and I would keep arguing and debating with them and pointing that. But it was all still relatively cordial, even though it got tense at some times when I was, showing them actual evidence of their wrongs. But I mean, it was always cultural, and they always kept coming over. And then one time, I think we just forgot to schedule. They just stopped coming. But yeah, it's very interesting. Even though they are horribly their own religion, The fact that they were still willing to go out and meet people at their houses, and go do the outside approach instead of the forcing people inside approach. It's a pretty interesting thing. Amos, have you ever had similar experiences with that, or how much evangelism shown in your neck of the woods?
I have yet to meet an evangelist out here. I've been out here.
Obviously, it's you.
Me, yeah, me over here. The gospel. No, I really haven't encountered any evangelism out here. The closest, I guess, would be like the town just north of me has a church that that was outside of where I worked for a while. It was like a Catholic church, just there. I think this was back when I worked at the Domino's over there, and we had to make pizzas for the church. That was, never encountered anyone coming up to me trying to preach the gospel to me.
Did you at least put a little chick tract in the pizza box?
No.
Teach them about D&D is for Satan. Yeah. Come to
Jesus. One time I drove a bus for a job, and it was a special bus, almost like we would transport a lot of people, but it wasn't like a regular bus. So you'd go to a lot of different locations to pick up and drop off people. And one of the times I dropped off one of these people at a church, and part of our service is we have to make sure they get in and everything. And one of the people at the church just came up to me, and they were like, "Oh, we always appreciate what you guys do. You guys are doing good work." And he just hands me this thing, and I'm thinking, "Oh, it's a tip." No,
it's a track.
It's a track, and I'm like, "Thank you."
Even more insulting. It's even.
Yeah, I personally at different points in my life, faith-wise, whether I was more devoted or more radical or whatever, I never ever appreciated a track. I like getting handed one, because I'm sitting there thinking, okay, I know who I am, I know what I have, I know who Jesus is. What the hell is this? What are you giving me this for?
They don't know that. Yeah.
And I'm just you're doing me I'm going to throw this away. You want to say it, but obviously I wouldn't say that to them. But there's part of me that just wants to go, I will throw this away. Just why? I'm already a Christian. Well, but I'm throwing it away.
Yeah, we sometimes have to resist that urge to argue with people who are still in that kind of lifestyle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, tracks, I think, if you're going somewhere or if you're doing something, you're in a place where it's that would be more well received, I can see that.
Yeah.
But just handing it out to random people,
probably not very effective.
In place as a sign of appreciation or something, you're trying to show your gratitude. It's no.
At least throw a couple real $1 bills into that fake $1.
Oh yeah, I got those. I got the fake money.
I bet you there's a subreddit somewhere that's is it a tip? No, it's a track. Oh, Dante's asking in the chat, what is a track? So Christian tracts. So evangelism tracts. So what a lot of evangelical, Protestant, basically all the non-Catholic parts of Christianity all have these things they call tracts. They're little pieces of literature that give you different, anything from a brochure to literally a little card, or sometimes a magnet. What they are is it just talks to you about, it gives you this 30-second version of the gospel. Did you know Jesus loves you? Did you know Jesus died for you? Sometimes not even that nice. Yeah. Have you done anything wrong? Have you committed a sin? Have you lied at least once?
Do you hate yourself? Yeah.
Yeah. If you do, you're going to go to hell. If you don't want to go to hell, say this prayer. Done.
Yeah.
Sometimes maybe if they'll be if you want more information, come to this church, call this number. Yeah, and that's the thing is sometimes Christians have these tracts that are disguised as money. They'll have like $100 bill, $10 bill, $1 bill, and they'll slip it into, like with the check for a waiter. And so like it'll literally stick out $1, and the waiter's like, "Oh, hey, $1." Pull it out, and it's just, "Have you accepted Jesus?" It's like,
yeah. The dumbest one I saw is, "You may be disappointed this is fake money, but I'm here to give you something even more valuable than money: eternal salvation." It's like, fuck off, man. I just want to punch that guy so hard. Whoever made that.
Those are the worst tracks. I've had some where it's like, I had one where there was a guy that basically claimed he was going to save 100 million souls in 10 years or something, and all it was
familiar.
And then all he claimed was just, take this track, read it, get people to repeat the prayer. That's a number. Like that. They're like, how like Brooke, you and I would talk about like healing testimonies. Oh, I went to go pray for these people, saw these results. They would be like, I went to go talk to these people. I got 10 prayers. Yeah. I got 10 people became Christians because they said this prayer. Yeah. Did they even know what they were saying? No, but they said it. So yeah, like
that's great. With just $1, you can save a heathen today.
Yeah,
exactly. In the arms of the angels.
Exactly.
Yeah, but it's funny they use gimmicks, right? So I kind of want to segue. So like it's pretty common. A lot of people use weird gimmicks like that to try to get people saved. And then there's the other side of the spectrum. More of what I was kind of talking about at the beginning is people who try to argue and debate people into Christianity. Have you guys ever seen that? And is it ever an effective strategy?
I mean, the whole online debate thing was really big in the early 2000s and stuff like that. The whole creationist versus evolution. That whole stream.
Yeah. Ken Tam is one of the huge ones.
Yeah, exactly.
He's like a young Earth debater.
Yeah.
Noah's Ark and all that.
They've had a couple of them, even in the Oxford Union. So Oxford, of course, the university out here, they have those discussions. They bring theists and others and have the discussion. I've never heard of somebody like actually coming to a point of faith, listening to a debate. I think it's good to have them. I think you keep hold people's feet to the fire and let them defend their positions and stuff like that. I think they're useful in that respect. But I've never seen debate as a real form of evangelism, like successfully winning people over to your side. It usually raises very good questions. But if it's upon the person to after that to kind of go and look into it for themselves. And yeah, as I say, God could use anything, but debate as evangelism, I don't think is very effective.
Oh, yeah. When's the last time you saw a debate and someone goes, "Oh, I guess I was wrong. You're right. I'm going to come to your side." When's the last time that ever happened in the history of us doing this?
Even when they fail at the debate, they will save face and just rebel at the end, just like, I'm not taking it. I'm not accepting it. Yeah. So no, debate is not a good outlet. It's good for the questions. I think it's educational, but no, it's not evangelism. That's for sure.
Yeah, there's a big subsect of people that do this all the time, and I talked about some of them before, but there's one that actually infiltrated our show. Do you remember that one, Amos? I think it's when
I was actually thinking about that when you guys brought that up.
Yeah. His name on there was Duncan Atheism, but he's more formally known as Darth Dawkins is his thing. And this is his whole life as well. And he's one of those guys that's kind of super arrogant as well. But his whole life is the presuppositional argument. And it's the only way to make people Christian, which is that you can't use logic or rationality or morality unless you believe in God first, is his whole argument. And he will use that same argument over and over and over again with bunches of different people online. And he does that as his Christian duty, I guess, of evangelism. But I've yet to ever hear anyone ever actually convert from that. He has a lot of lackeys that come around for the blood sport of it. It kind of reminds me a lot of like Fresh and Fit. They have their after hours night show where they bring on women, and it's always the same questions and it's always the same conversations. And after the first 2 or 3 you watch, you get it, right?
Yeah,
there's not a lot. There's not a lot, dude. Yeah.
Exactly.
But people still come for the blood sport of it, hoping to see someone get kicked out,
kumite.
Hoping someone get too drunk and freak out. And so Darth Dawkins' show is essentially Fresh and Fit, but for really long, boring arguments.
Yeah. I mean, I think all Christians should do some apologetics. So at least you have a kind of a foundation of why you believe what you believe. And I mean, there's some very good reasons, right? So, understanding the significance of the New Testament as a historical document, the evidence for the resurrection of Christ, understanding the difference between infallibility and, being an accurate record. There's good reasons to look at these things in a historical and archaeological fashion. Not necessary, because obviously there have been millions of Christians before all of these types of discussions, and they just had an experience and they believed, and there's nothing wrong with having that encounter. But I mean, in this day and age, you might need a little bit more. A little apologetics wouldn't hurt anybody.
Yeah. It's literally for yourself. It's not evangelism for others, right? Yeah. At the end of the day. Amos, have you ever been involved in any of those evangelism debates or have seen any of those, and has anything ever come out of it?
I don't think I've ever pursued any debates. I've definitely heard some. I remember the only thing, like, I mean, evangelism debates is pretty much just aggressive apologetics.
Yeah, that's one way to put it. Yeah.
Very.
And I just remember, I never understood the apologetics thing. Never got into it. I mean, I've heard about it. I remember listening to people talk about it, but never did it myself. Never really saw it work, let alone really go anywhere. Like, there was no serious debate. It was just no, God, and then no, and then that's about it. Like, there's not really any serious pursuit. I think there was the one, the closest I ever saw to debates and stuff was just Ray Comfort stuff.
Oh yeah.
He tried to.
Yeah. And he does a little bit of apologetics, but he's mostly all about the yelling at penal substitution at strangers, right?
Yeah.
But I definitely get that. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, Conk, who would you recommend for apologetic debates? I mean, I know William Lane Craig, you and I probably would agree. He's really up there.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Yeah. Well, I like William Lane Craig because he talks about Christian nihilism, and I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
And if I had to pick one, I think that one's up there. That's pretty cool. Funny to talk about him now, but good old Ravi Zacharias' old stuff.
He was good in his day. Yeah, he was very good in his day.
Yeah, he was really big on his apologetics and stuff. But I mean, I just want to reiterate that those are for you to learn stuff. It's not to convert people, right?
Correct.
Nobody gets converted from debating about presupposition or old versus young Earth theory or creation and evolution. I don't think any of those have anything really to do with evangelism. And the people who do it for evangelism kind of go back into that blood sport thing. They're really just doing it to get an audience, and they kind of make a grift out of it, so to speak. So here's kind of my final conclusion point, and then we'll open it to Q&A, and I'll throw it to you, Amos, because I know you'll probably have to leave before us. The root of evangelism, and it kind of goes back to the quote you're talking about at the beginning, is at all times preach the gospel, and if necessary, use words. If I could subcategorize all the stuff we're talking about, is evangelism a behavior or is it a character trait?
Behavior.
You think evangelism is a behavior?
Why not both?
Why not both?
Why not both?
I think your character trait is more than evangel. I think there's more going on with you is evangelism. I think because the word evangelism, while I did say it is this constant thing you can be doing through your actions, it's I don't see it as a character thing. When you're sitting there, what are his character traits? Oh, he's honest, he's honorable, he's this, he's that, and he evangelizes. It's no, evangelism is what he's doing. I'd say.
Sorry, hold on. I'm trying.
I don't know. What do you think, Brooke?
I think you're right, but at the same time, there are experiential evangelists. So Brother Lawrence is a good example of that. He didn't preach. He would just wash the dishes. And people would just come and watch him in ecstasy, like he's just in this ecstatic trance. And they would just like see the glory of God upon him doing the most mundane of tasks. So I think you're right in the sense that it can be a person's personality and their character, but at the same time, it can be experiential, where it's just an outward expression of what's going on the inside with their relationship. So yeah, I think it could be, as I don't want to box it in, I think is the point we've been saying for this entire thing. God can use anything.
I would agree. So yeah, because to me, I think it stems more of what you were just talking about there, Brooke, is that though it is technically both, I think the behavior comes from the inside, right? It's kind of the good fruit tree thing. And this is why I usually have beef with the soapbox people in general, is because like we were talking before, it is kind of a works thing, right? Where they're trying to make it a behavior, make it a script, make it a tract you have to do, right? Instead of just you internally accepting the gospel and having the Spirit in you. And then evangelism is just a character trait, and it kind of looks more like the Jesus part instead of the John the Baptist part, right?
Sure.
Whether the John the Baptist part is always, bad or whatever, I don't know if I could say that. I mean, if we're trusting God to lead us into what we need to do, then hey, maybe we'll have an inkling opportunity to speak bigger like that. But I think 99% of evangelism is just dealing with the people around you with the inward character traits that the Spirit gives you, right? So that's why I kind of lean to that answer, because I think the character trait can be, the behavior is just the fruit of what's already inside, right?
Sure.
So yeah, and so that's kind of my final thoughts on it, is just play it by ear, right? Do your thing, this is something people talk about all the time, and it's kind of similar, but like exorcisms, right? Some people try to make a whole grift in their whole life about teaching about exorcisms and seeking out demons and all that kind of stuff, but you never see Jesus actively go try to find people to exorcise. The very few times he did do it, it's because they just happened to be there while he was doing something else, right?
Jesus did more exercise than exorcise.
Yeah, exactly. Stay hydrated, eat some sports candy, aka apples. But yeah, there's definitely true, and that's a whole different tirade I want to talk about, and it kind of goes into Uncle Ted, but
oh jeez.
But we don't got time for Uncle Ted already an hour into the show. But I'm about to post the Q&A link in there. Feel free to come in, ask us questions,
and I'm about to dip out, so it was awesome.
Oh, yeah.
Good to have you back on the show.
Yes.
Come on.
This is just the one time. You never know. I could come back again, but
you're not signing any contracts at this moment.
Exactly. I mean, yeah. I mean, you guys provided a very lucrative contract, so I'm definitely considering it.
Good on us, man.
But I'll promise to only give you green M&Ms like you like.
But anyways, no. Thanks, everyone. I will see everyone some other time.
All right. Yeah.
Yep.
Peace.
Have a good one, Amos. Take care, bro.
Yep. But we're still here. We're still live.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yep. The StreamYard Q&A links in there. Come join us, ask a question, all that kind of stuff. You cannot ask Amos a question. We're going to keep his mystery allured. The veil of what's in Amos's head will never be known. But you can pick our brains, But Brooke, you got anything else while we're waiting for people?
Yeah, I think as you say, the evangelism thing is very interesting, because we used to do a lot of that for one of the churches that we were involved in, and even in the conferences that we used to do. A big part of it was in the middle of the conference, we would take teams out on the street, pray for the sick, be pulling people out of wheelchairs and all that good stuff, and then we'd be, oh yeah, well we're meeting tonight, some would come and some wouldn't, and all that kind of stuff. And so yeah, I think we can get too boxed into a system. I think we really should kind of keep it open and flexible. And like I say, God could use anything, even people who are completely wrong, which is, just open your mouth, man. You never know what you'll say,
Exactly. Actually, Dante in the chat has a question for us. What is our favorite Christian art? You want to go first, Brooke?
I don't particularly have particularly. I mean, I like the iconography of the Orthodox Church. That's kind of my faith tradition. But I don't particularly have a favorite Christian art. I mean, I like when I go to a museum and there's beautiful pieces. And I like religious art in that sense because you can see people are really trying to do something for God, as crazy as it sounds. They go forth and there's so much work and effort and detail that goes into it. So I always feel very connected in, seeing those exhibits in a museum, but I can't say like I have a particular artist or anything like that. That wouldn't be me. What do you think, Konk? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, my first thought reading that is, surprisingly, most people make fun of Christian music because it's kind of cheesy. We've done it here as well.
Yes.
The term Christian kosher, attributed, we started from Rollo. I don't know if he invented it or if he got it from somewhere, but we usually quote Rollo. We talk about Christian kosher, where a lot of Christian art and culture is just copying other people's stuff, but worse. So, it's the Kmart, Walmart brand of everything. However, Christian death metal, deathcore, metalcore, all of that is usually near the top of the charts because it is objectively good and on par with secular metal. You'd be surprised how many people are like the hardcore atheist goth people who still listen to Christian death metal just because it is objectively good.
It's good music.
Yeah. So I don't know if that's what you wanted me to go for Christian art.
Who's a band? Give me a band. I haven't heard any good death metal in a while.
My personal favorite, there's two. One's called Becoming the Archetype. And I think they're retired. And then the other one, it's retired, is In the Midst of Lions. They're way more on the deathcore, grindcore stuff.
I think, I might have heard some of that. That sounds familiar.
Yeah. And as for like metalcore, where it's a little more choppy instead of thuddy, if you know what I mean. Red Crusader talking about Extol. Extol is very interesting. They're very diverse in their sound. But the one that's still going, that's still one of the top metal bands of all time, is August Burns Red. And they are a Christian band. Yeah, but they're top of the charts. They play Warped Tour and all of that kind of stuff. I think they've played Ozfest before, all of that. So they're like the big secular Christian metal band that still everyone listens to. And they've been going for like 10 plus years. I listened to them in high school. So, August Burns Red is kind of like the big one. Another big one that used to be there is As I Lay Dying, was a Christian metalcore band that got really big and would play all the big concerts and stuff too.
Cool.
But yeah, people love their Christian death metal.
That's I mean, that like what you touched on with the whole art and culture thing. That's why I like the old pieces of artwork that has been done when the church was actually creative and they actually did art and music and they were the pioneers and stuff like that. A lot of the modern stuff, as you say, is very flaky and stuff. But I'll check out the music, man. I have not listened to some good death metal in quite some time.
Yeah. All right. Zomboy asked me a question real quick. He's asking about the Sex and Bible videos I did before. I actually did those on other people's channels as like guest co-hosts. Yes. There's one on Rich Cooper's channel, Entrepreneur in Cars. It's called The Truth About the Bible and Monogamy or something like that. If I could find the links, I'll send them out. And then I did and that one was like a year ago. The more recent one that was only like 2 or 3 months ago, I did on Paul's Paul Benjamin's channel, Apex Mindset.
Yeah.
And that one we got into the nitty-gritty of what does marriage and husband and wife actually mean versus what the Bible tries, or what churchianity tries to tell you now, kind of thing. And that one was really good and straight through too. So like we were saying at the beginning, we were going to do a Sex in the Bible episode here and just make it the big, huge episode with all the references and all that stuff so that we can just point to it here on my channel. So like we could just keep linking it over again so I don't have to re-explain it 20 times on 20 different channels. But I want that to be like pretty straightforward and referential. So it's going to take more time than, just a normal Sunday podcast. So we'll have that done eventually here. But yeah, check out that. I also went on Rollo's channel like 2 years ago, talking about religion to Red Pill before he even wrote the 4th book. So you can check all those out too. Is there any more questions? Franz has a question. Will any true gospel preacher be defeated in Bible debate? Do you know anyone who holds an undefeated title?
I'm sure every Bible preacher thinks they're undefeated. Whether they actually are or not is up for debate.
Yeah. And that's just something weird I've noticed is like all the people that do it as their thing.
Yeah.
They all feel very arrogant or like almost narcissistic about their interpretation of scripture, and everyone else is wrong but them. So come to them. If you're talking about like power dynamics, they always take the role of I'm the teacher teaching you, even if you might have been doing it longer than them, or you might have done more than them. It doesn't matter. They're the teacher. You're the student. You got to listen to them kind of thing. So, yeah, it's just this weird thing. And like, there's so many parts that are like open to interpretation, but it seems like their ego investment of being the pastor for everyone else is more undefeated than their actual debate topics.
Yeah. And I mean, I get into those arguments a lot, especially coming from like an Orthodox perspective, which is very different than the Protestant perspective. And I encounter these apologetics people. I used to be one. I used to do all that kind of apologetics and stuff. So when I see them coming with an argument and I know they don't even understand the basics of what I'm talking about, it's just kind of like, okay, that's all right. All right. We're not going to agree. We're not going to have this conversation. Yeah. It's going to be scripture tennis. Nobody's going to gain anything out of this. I'm going to throw verses. You'll throw them back. And we're both going to be out of context in everybody's perspective. It's not always a winning proposition in that respect.
Mm-hmm. Oh, also, Zomboy, who was asking before about the other ones on this show, religion. We also had Abu American on that talked about polygamy and multiple wives. And if you guys don't know Abu American, he's like super Chad Muslim. And so we were talking about the differences between like Quran and relationships and family and monogamy and polygamy versus like the Old Testament and the Christian narrative of family and all of that. So I think that would be sick. Yeah, you guys should check that one out. It was like 17 or 18. It was pretty young in the podcast. He was in I believe Abu American was in the teens. Yeah. We have a playlist for all of them that I think you made one and I made one of all the shows in order since we switch around channels often.
Just do a search Religion Zero Abu and it should come up.
Exactly. All right.
Nobody wants to jump on, man. It's kind of
we got a lot of text questions, but you guys can join the stream early, hop up in here and tell us in person or have a conversation or whatever. I'll give it till like what 10, 18, 10, 20. Then we'll just call it a day.
That should be fine. Yeah. Who was the other the preaching series that you sent me? Well, send the group.
Oh yeah.
Did the discussion about sex and other things. Who was that guy again?
Clyde Plinkington. I think
right.
Yeah. Yes. And that's the one who introduced me into that specific topic.
Yes.
I've already studied a lot about like patriarchy and what is a wife and what is a concubine and all of that stuff, which is a very fun topic. It's one of my favorite things. But he got into the nitty-gritty of like, what does the word marriage literally mean in the actual Hebrew and Greek? In what context it's used? What is male and female? Was the government involved? And he kind of broke down. What was the actual biblical context of all of the words marriage and sex and union and husband wife and all that stuff? And that kind of was like its own little second red pill opening of like a whole new way of thought. He has a book called Do Benevolence, and it's very hard to find. I got a paperback copy of it, and it was like $80 and like 2 weeks to ship to me. You're not going to find it anywhere easy, but if you can find Do Benevolence by Clyde Plinkington, that's like his big book on like marriage and husbands and wives and sex and all of that. So if you can find it, get it. But it's hard and it's expensive. There's not a lot in print.
It was a good series. When you sent that out to me, it's like, wow, this guy's really knows his stuff. So it definitely opened up and changed my perspective on a lot of things, which was pretty impressive.
Oh yeah. There's another guy in the sphere. His name's Levi, and I think his old tag was Red Pill Bible Man or something like that.
Okay.
And he was on Twitter, and now he has his own little private like Telegram stuff I got invited into, which is cool. So I get
cool.
to hear them. And he's really big on like deep diving into like Proverbs and Song of Solomon, because especially Song of Solomon, that's kind of the no touchy, you know, the porn book of the Old Testament. But he's been going really far on that and finding all the innuendos and euphemisms. And when it says, I use this, you know, use this incense and I use this spice, he would like look up the context of what spice was he physically talking about. And like he would look up and it's like, oh, it's actually like an aphrodisiac that they would use back in the day and stuff like that. And he's got some pretty interesting stuff. His name's Levi Shea, I think, on Twitter. It used to be Red Pill Bible Guy or something like that. And so he's got some interesting, cool things to talk about sex as well. He hangs out more with the with that other side of the manosphere, so to speak, not the Rule Zero side, if you know what I'm saying.
Sure.
You know,
the Great Schism.
He ended up falling and hanging out with the other side of the schism. But I mean, we're still relatively good acquaintances, and we're still in each other's chats and all that. So Levi's a cool dude. Look up him if you want to learn more about Song of Solomon and like Bible sex. It's like Bible Kama Sutra. It's like
cool.
Yeah. The Great Schism of Florida.
It's funny.
Yeah. Alrighty. Well, we don't got a lot coming in. We could probably edit here. Do you got any final thoughts for us, Brooke?
No, I think, you know, evangelism has its place. I think a lot of people, as again, I don't think they have a proper view of the Father. And I think I laid out how the kind of two views of God are really in conflict with each other. Either God really is love and really going to the ends of the earth to fulfill his plan for us, or he really doesn't like us and he's just kind of tolerating us. And it's a very big distinction in the church and so forth. But yeah, it has its place, and evangelism and the outreach of the Catholic Church and Church of England and the Orthodox Church, and you know, it went in line with colonialism and other powers, and it shaped nations. It's changed cultures. You know, it is an integrated part of Western civilization. Not an active role now, especially in Europe. Europe is very post-Christian culture and stuff like that. But you can see the fruits of it. And we always talk about that. Like, if you really want to see the fruits of Catholicism, you look at Mexico and Latin America. If you want to see the fruits of Protestantism, you know, you look at the United States, right? If you want to see like the fruits of the Orthodox Church, you look to like the Eastern Bloc of Europe and stuff like that. And those are the seeds of, you know, the three branches of the church. And it's obviously had a huge impact. And yeah, I do hope that, you know, the churches continue to do it. I think, you know, this is a great message. The gospel should be preached, bring people into that relationship with God. And I hope it continues and we get it right, you know, instead of these online arguments.
Yeah. There's two more quick ones in here. Sure. Throw up. Friends, have you heard of Tovia Singer? I have not, but I have heard of people who disagree with Paul as legitimate. There are a lot of people that do that are kind of like gospel only. The epistles are a bastardized, different version sect of Christianity. I've heard of those people before. Yeah. I don't know if they really have any merit or not. I haven't really looked into it because I honestly don't care that much. But I can see what they're saying, that Paul had a whole different tone, right? Like
different message.
Yeah. He had a different way of speaking, a different kind of message, and he was hitting on different things for different people, different than Jesus did. So I get why people believe that, but it's not really my my forte, so to speak.
I mean, this is the crux of covenant theology, not understanding Jesus is first and foremost an Old Testament preacher. Paul is an exclusively New Testament preacher. So it's not that they're in conflict. And this is where these like Paul is not a legitimate preacher thing comes from. Is not understanding, no, Jesus was speaking to the Jews under the Old Covenant. The New Covenant doesn't begin until the shedding of blood at his death, right? He doesn't even mention the New Covenant until the Last Supper. So Paul has a different revelation post-cross than the message of Jesus speaking before the cross. And yes, there are some very distinct differences, right? Even in like the Lord's Prayer, you know, Father, forgive us as we forgive those who trespass against us. Old covenant justice, in order to be forgiven, you had to forgive. Paul would write the complete opposite in something like Ephesians 3:32. No, forgive one another, even as God for Christ's sake has already forgiven you. The two can't be true at the same time, right? You can't have to forgive to be forgiven and then on the same time you're forgiven, so you should forgive. You can't have, but it's not that they're in different covenants, and that's what a lot of these, like, discrediting Paul sort of things, they don't understand that distinction, and that's where they get into this trouble.
Yeah, for sure. Because I can see how people do that. And then another thing similar is they think the Old Testament God is different than the New Testament God. You get people who believe that too.
Yeah,
and it's the same. It's the same concept. Yeah, it's the same God, but new covenants, new ways of living, kind of thing. And here's the last question, which I'll actually go into my my final thoughts. So we'll end it after we do this one. Have you heard of our Lord and Savior Ryan Stone?
We had him on the show, didn't we?
Yeah. Ryan Stone was super early. I want to say like episode 7 or 8. And we were just, shooting the shit about, because he grew up in a religious household and now he's become atheist. He was a big fan of, Christopher Hitchens, and all of those people, Richard Dawkins. So we kind of just shoot the shit. We're all good pals. But bringing up Ryan Stone, this is kind of my final thoughts. I was going to say is like, evangelism is really only for the people who are open to wanting to talk about it. And this goes into Ryan Stone because this is one of his things, is like, he's not going to talk to people that are just openly hating or not even trying to get it, right? If you're not trying to get it, you're just going to be bashing your head against the wall the whole time, and everybody's going to end up miserable. If people are open to it, awesome. But I mean, like he also says, like, if you go to somebody and preach and they don't accept it, shake the dust off your feet and move on.
And move on.
You don't, evangelism is more flowing like water and not a bludgeon, right?
Correct.
And I think that's kind of the theme of people we think do it wrong is, people are trying to bludgeon the gospel into people through debate, through screaming on YouTube and Discord, trying to academically disprove everyone, trying to scream everyone's a sinner and you're going to hell. All of those are bludgeons, right?
Yeah.
And most people leave with a more sour taste in their mouth than a sweet one with those.
I mean, God could still use anything, but I think some of those people do some real damage.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me, there's some verse, and I always forget which one it is. I want to say it's like Thessalonians or something, but somebody was complaining to Paul that there's some preacher that was preaching, but he was super prideful about it or something like that. And Paul's like, I don't care as long as he's preaching.
Some preach for the glory of themselves. Some preach for the glory of God. At least the gospel gets preached. I don't care.
Yeah,
exactly. That's the attitude.
Yeah. All righty. I think that's a good way to end it.
I think absolutely.
All right, Brooke, we're going to be on your channel in 2 weeks.
2 weeks. Yes.
All right, awesome.
So I think Heather was asking if, we go back to bi-weekly. So in 2 weeks, I'll set it up. Look out for it in the playlist, and we'll take it from there.
Yep. Sounds good. Everybody have a great rest of your 2 weeks.
Thanks for watching, guys.